Hello everybody and welcome to my modelling spotlight on my Railway Series Toby model. Now, what is the inspiration for this guy and his suite of tramway coaches? Well, there's a few inspirations you can draw from here and they're all a little bit different. Clearly I've gone for something very Railway Series, but there are also elements of the TV series and of the Reverend's Farker layout and its models in here as well. Luckily, Toby is the one... Well, actually, he's the first engine in the series to be based on a real basis, thank the Lord. He is an LNER J70 tram engine from the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway, as are the coaches, apart from Victoria, which is just a four-wheel coach. And all of the illustrators draw Toby like he's a J70. There's not many variations. He comes across the same in all the iterations, so if you're going Railway Series, it's very easy to just slap on a J70 and say, that's it. So, there is a ready-to-run model of a J70 available, made by Rapido, and I didn't use it. No, I started making my Toby before that was available, and I took a leaf out of the Reverend's modelling book, which was to find a motor bogie and build a body on top of it. And the reason for that is that Toby is a box. If you can't scratch build a box, you can't scratch build very much. So I thought I would take it as a nice little challenge to scratch build a J70 because that was very, very cost effective. The motor bogie cost me, $50 Australian, and I had all of the material lying around to make a Toby. So I got a J70 for $50 Australian. Elsie and Henrietta are also scratch built, and we'll get to all of that later. We'll describe that when we get to the workbench. Victoria is just a standard Hornby Railways four-wheel modern coach. And that's probably the most expensive thing I've ever bought to turn into a Railway Series character, funnily enough. So I say that part of this is TVS or Farker models inspired, and what are those elements? So Toby clearly has his Railway Series colours of his blue skirts and his brown wooden body with the lighter brown framing. But the white roof is the one place where I differ from the Railway Series illustrations. All of the illustrators, I believe, and let me just put some photos up here and I'll tell you if I'm wrong in the editing room, have a grey roof for Toby. So in the Railway Series, his roof is grey or a little bit darker. But the Reverend used a white roof for his Toby model, which is interesting. So the Reverend had a different view of what Toby should look like. He also gave Toby black skirts on the lower half of the skirt where the cowcatcher is, which is interesting. I don't like that as much, and I could tell you that I made Toby's roof white because the Reverend did it, but that's not actually why I did it. I made Toby's roof white because Brett Allcroft did. The TV show is what I grew up on. It's what I'm the most nostalgic for, and so I like to incorporate TV series elements in the things that I do because that just makes me feel fuzzy and warm. So Toby has a white roof because that's what I grew up watching as a small child. It's also the reason why my passenger stock have orange bodies. So Elsie and Henrietta have never appeared as orange anywhere. They've always been brown, and this is, I would say, a controversial opinion if anybody had picked up on it or disagreed with me, but no one has yet. So I'm interested by that. Does everyone else think that orange is just a better colour for the Railway Series passenger stock? But I've made them orange with white roofs, which matches my Annie and Clarabelle because they are North West Railway livery coaches. The one thing that differs between my livery for passenger stock and I guess a lot of the fan interpretations is the red framing or running boards, and that's just because I think it looks nice. It's not from anything. It's not from anything the Reverend did, the TVS or the Railway Series. It's just because I once saw LNER teak coaches with red framing and thought that looks pretty cool, and initially I tried to make my Annie and Clarabelle teak. I thought that the interpretation that Dalby was going for in the Railway Series with the orange bodies was like an LNER teak, and especially when Sprong by the end of it was brown, I thought that was really what it was meant to be going for, was a teak body finish. And it's funny, the painting technique I have for teak starts with a light orange base coat, and then you put on some oil paints on top of that and you switch it around. I've done it before, and so I started my Annie and Clarabelle like that, and then said, actually, I just like the orange, so I'll keep the orange. And then that's influenced the rest of it. I'd forgotten about that. Anyway, let's get to the bench and we'll show you how I made some of these models. All right, let's have a look at Toby. So Toby is a scratch build on top of a motor bogie. Now, the Reverend used a motor bogie with a scratch build as well. This is the bogie he opted for, which is one of the Triang motor bogies that's available at the time he was making his. we have access to better technology now, albeit it's not really that much better. So again, I chose a scratch build because Toby is a box. If you can't build a box, you can't build much. So that's what we're going for. Now, in order to get into the motor, and I'll take it apart to show you exactly what I've done, we take off the roof, which is held magnetically. You can see the magnet here, and there's a magnet under this bit of plastic here as well. Held magnetically on, and there are these convenient screws. So let me undo these, and we'll get in there. We'll see what's going on. All right. So this all started with this bogie, which is from a Powerline C48. I got this for $50 Australian off eBay. It came with a center axle, so it used to be a six-wheeled thing, and I ran it as a six-wheeled thing for quite a long time, but it just kind of didn't operate well because the middle spring was too springy and it kept taking these wheels off the pickup. In order to turn this into a motor bogie that functioned on its own, I had to fashion my own pickups for it. So you can see I've got a piece of 1mm thick brass rod here that is bent around a bit of plastic. I had to cut off the external frames, like the parts that cover the wheels. And that left behind this little bit of sprue, which I was able to bend a rod around and solder it to the terminals on the motor. So this picks up from the inside of these wheels. The wheels themselves, this came with traction tire wheels on this side. It usually only picked up from this side through the axle in some brass strip that are underneath this plastic here. But I bought a spare set of wheels for the trailing bogie to this thing online and put them in the space of the traction one, so now it picks up on all sides. Now, this was a convenient motor bogie to choose, one, because it's available, two, because it had this shelf here, this convenient shelf with screw holes, which I could use to mount the body of the J70. Now, I didn't know it at the time when I bought this, that the height of that shelf was perfect to support the floor piece of a J70, the internal floor. So that really worked in my favor, but I didn't know it at the time. That was just luck. So if you want to build a J70, try and get one of these things. It's easy. All right, let's talk about the body. The body of Toby is all built around this floor piece. You can see that it runs along here and up in the front. It's just one continual piece that everything is built up from and down from. In order to know what measurements I needed, I printed both a picture of a J70 and some engineering drawings of a J70 to scale. And then, that's a really loud truck. I hope that doesn't come across in the recording. And then I measured from the scale drawing what all the measurements were and cut that out of plastic card and built it up. It didn't quite work all the time. You can see, I don't know if you can see here actually. Yes, you can. Lopsided. For some reason, I cut this piece longer than that piece. I don't know what the hell happened, but he's a bit like that. He's a bit skew-iff, Toby. But you don't notice it when you're looking at him from either side. So to me, that doesn't matter, and I just wanted to build him and complete him. So the body of him here is plastic card that is made of this like wood effect. So the sheet comes like that, and then the framing itself is just bits of strip plastic card I've cut to the right size. I think I also cut the strips. I don't think I bought it as strips. The skirt is again just a piece of 1mm thick plastic card. The groove on it is a C-channel piece, I believe, but the other grooves, like this one that comes just under the NWR there, and the ones that come between these access plates, are made with a file, just going along and digging into the plastic and scoring it along with a file. So fairly easy construction for the body. The buffers are from some poor unfortunate Hornby wagon, I can't remember which one, and the cow catchers, these are interesting. This is plastic card, 0.5mm thick. I made one bent piece around and glued that in, and then I cut bits to the right size and glued them all along. There's meant to be no gap really under the coupling here, but I've just lost the piece that was meant to be there. It's come off. Same as happened on the other side, which is a bit of a shame. I'll have to redo that before the next exhibition. Now, I could have chosen to make this out of brass, both the body and the strips for the cow catcher, but I'm just bad at building with brass, so I didn't bother with that. The first tricky part of all this was the couplings. So, as you'll note, there's not really a whole lot of room in here, especially once we get the motor bogie in. It's pretty much as long as Toby is, so it's kind of hard to figure out where that coupling should have gone. On the rear one, I was able to fit in a regular KD box, which I screwed into the body there. It doesn't get a lot of movement because of the cowcatcher, but it still uncouples fine. The second one, though, I've had to integrate into the body of the cowcatcher itself. So you can see we've built this. Can you see it? The cowcatcher is one separate whole piece that kind of comes off. It's got this black plastic card construction at its base, which connects to the coupler, which also acts as the top rail for all this cowcatchery goodness here. And so that's how that's more well integrated into the body. That was a little more difficult to get right, and initially this cowcatcher was actually on the bogie itself. It was attached here, but it came off once, and then I just decided to put it on the body of Toby. Now, the other major challenge was the roof. So Toby's roof is quite interesting, and I'll just put it on his body to show you. I didn't have a lot of pieces that looked like things on a J70 roof. The funnel is a bit of a rivet that I got from Annie and Clarabelle's bogies because they were triang. I broke the rivets off to get the bogies out, and that's one of the rivets. The bell is a piece of an Airfix sprue that I've painted gold. The bell chain, the string, is plastic card rod that I've bent into shape and then glued in. And this little steam pipe here is a bit of a paperclip, and that is a bit of balsa dowel that I've cut off. So it's a little higgledy-piggledy, hoggedy-boggedy, but it all goes together quite well. Now, for his colouring, Toby wears NWR blue on his skirt. It is the same pot of paint as I used for E2 Thomas and Ginty Thomas. And you can see these two differ quite significantly because the paint had aged over time. This is somewhere in the middle between these two. So we can see the progression of my pot of paint just depreciating over time. He uses a sort of medium brown on his body and a tan color on the wood framing. And he's dual liveried. So this side has the NWR and the 7. The other side just has the classic 7 look. For weathering, I haven't done much to him. I've painted across the roof and done flicking of a brush to get all of these little black dot effects. For the skirts, because he works in a quarry, I've used white dust. So I've got some artist pastels you can see in this truck. I've scraped them up and I've applied them with a makeup brush from the bottom up to give that splashing up of quarry dust. But that there is Toby. One thing you might notice about him is his face is kind of distorting out. Don't know what that is. Some kind of bimetallic strip effect or something. I've got lots of layers of plastic card, more at the top than the bottom. Maybe they're pulling each other apart. Don't know. It hasn't happened on the sides, but he's just looking a little sad. So that's Toby. Let's show you his crew. All right, here we have the tramway crew. We'll start with Henrietta. As I said, this is a scratch build out of plastic card, and you can't... Can you really see that? Not really. There's no obvious points I can show you. The chassis is the one thing that's come from a ready-to-run model. This is from one of those Lima tanker wagons, which Edwards used as reference in Super Rescue. So those big BP tankers. I needed... The one iconic thing you need with the tramway coaches is that the buffer height needs to be above the frame height, because the frames are really low and the wheels are really low, and they've got the steps down because they operate at floor level, not platform level. So I took the buffers off the end of this thing, was able to extend them out, and then mount them up on the veranda boards. Now, the reason I chose that chassis or the Lima tanker is because the wheelbase was just about correct. It was a little bit long, and so I printed a drawing of one of the four-wheel coaches from Wisbech and Upwell, and I scaled my scratch build to that. But because I used the wheel spacing as the scale, I initially built this thing so goddamn tall. It was really, really big. It was wrong. So I had to rebuild it, which is a shame. The tricky part here was everything. Henrietta was not an easy build. You can see I've got a lot of detail in here that's just handcrafted out of plastic card bits I've had to stick together. The veranda is plastic card rod that I've bent some of the bits and made them the right length and painted them up. The buffer beams needed extending. This is it's all just scratch built. It was made meticulously over about a month. The hard part was the coach body. You can see it's not straight up and down. It's got a curve to it. And I couldn't cut all of the windows correctly. Every time I'd cut this board right, the side of the body the right way, I'd go to cut the windows, and because they have that bevel on them, it was just too difficult to get them all at the same level. So what I did was I cut a strip for the bottom, so this whole piece here, and then the top piece, and then I made little eye columns, and you can see the line where they join in, especially down here. So I made little eye columns that were all the same length, and then I glued them between the two layers, and that is how I made the sides of the body. Anyway, last thing, nails for the roof, as I usually do, with a little bit of plastic card around them. LC is, I guess, kind of the same deal. We've got a scratch build body. We can see that if I pull it apart. The glue wore off here. Now it just comes apart often. So scratch build on the inside. The body is made from the same wood paneling plastic card as Toby's is. Just lots of different details cut up from things like brass rod or paper clips and glued into place. We've got the classic nails for the vent, and the buffers are from some poor unfortunate wagon, although the beam itself is a bit of plastic card mounted at that height that is above the running board. The bogie is a Mark 1, Hornby Mark 1 bogie that I have cut in the middle and just glued together. So it's ultra short little wheelbase. I did that because a coach bogie is naturally going to be lower than the height of the buffer board. That made sure that I had the right height to the top of the wagon. Doesn't look exactly right for a luggage wagon, but it's close enough. I based the measurements of this vaguely on the details of the real Wisbech and Upbowl luggage wagon, but mostly just made it to match Henrietta to look correct together. And then Victoria, least interesting of all, is just a Hornby coach. So no modifications made here apart from the painting, and I didn't even finish the paint job properly. You'll see the spillage up the top here, and it looks bad. It has looked bad for like 3 years, but one day I will reapproach this. Anyway, let's put them all in the layout and let's see them running, why don't we?